Rockwall County Jail.
Hello, Jail. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, you know. It's a pretty good evening.
What can I do for you?
I was wanting to know whether the sheriff's department is going to allow free speech. Is that something you could help me with?
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that you could help me with free speech. Are you guys going to make sure that nobody gets violated for free speech?
How can I help you?
Hi, there's an issue with free speech, and I was just wondering if you could help me with that issue.
An issue with free speech? With what?
With free speech, you know how we have the First Amendment right to speak and to write signs and hold signs and all that stuff. Will you guys be protecting our free speech today, or are we supposed to come down there and stop you from having free speech?
But this is the jail.
Yeah, but it might be our job to make sure you have no free speech, or maybe other rights that go along with that. Because your guys' duties are to uphold the Constitution, and since you're not doing that, I think that some other people need to be employed, and shall be employed to make sure that Rockwall no longer has the freedom of speech as an entity, as a corporate like state government entity. Have you ever heard about people being employed to you know, not necessarily that it's their opinion or not, but they just have to do their job?
Okay.
Yeah. So would you guys be in the business of respecting people's rights, or would you guys like your rights taken away?
We follow the rights, sir.
What's up?
What's that?
I asked what'd you just say? You have rights? Is that what you said? That's a good thing.
Everyone has rights, sir.
Well, on-duty cops don't have rights. They have duties. They swore oath to uphold the people's rights.
Okay.
So when they swore an oath to uphold the people's rights, they had a duty. They therefore had a duty to respect and uphold the rights of the citizens around them, and with bravery that makes it to where they're willing to you know, like a law enforcement officer is willing to die in the line of duty to ensure that people's rights are upheld. And Rockwall isn't upholding people's rights. They're actually stepping on the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, which is our nation. And there's groups that employ themselves in making sure that this does not ever happen ever again. And I was just wondering if you're opposed to people doing their jobs, because it's just a job. It's not like it's not their personal opinion. They just want to, you know, serve their duties and do their job. And part of that job is to make sure that people that take rights away from others and don't respect others' rights get their rights taken, and they never have rights ever again.
How was Rockwall doing that?
Well, there was some dudes down there that were protesting, which that's another constitutional protected right, the right to protest. And they were drawing on the sidewalks, on our sidewalks, protesting the police. Okay, which is our sidewalks. And yeah, that's our sidewalk. That's our courthouse. That's our courthouse. Okay.
Whose courthouse?
The people's courthouse.
The government's courthouse?
No, the government is the government of the people. Okay? The other people are just mediators. Like law enforcement officers, those guys are just like mediators. They're not actually, They're not even citizens. When they swore to uphold the law.
Judges mediators?
What?
Are the judges mediators?
Yeah, the judges are mediators.
Oh, okay, cool. Keep going.
But those were our sidewalks, and we appreciate the people protesting, because protesting is a more honorable thing than to violate somebody's civil rights. So there will be an employment where people won't be necessarily, they won't be their opinion to take care of these rights violators. It'll just be their job to take care of the rights violators. Do you oppose the practice of being able to do your job?
No, I think everyone's doing their job.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you guys, as a sheriff's department and a jail and all that other stuff, aren't opposed to people just doing their jobs, huh?
No, I think everyone can do their job.
Okay. Well, it's some people's jobs to make sure that oath breakers and violators of the Constitution no longer ever have rights again.
Are you making a statement?
Well, it's like a question whether that you guys do you guys oppose the right of the people to do their job. Everybody has the right to work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody has the right to work, as long at least we both understand that, you know.
Right.
All right. Because your guys' job is pretty important, isn't it?
I think everyone plays a good part in society.
Yeah. Your guys' job is pretty important. People understand that. Nobody wants to see anybody get their jobs taken away from them, or their rights taken away from them. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Heck yeah. That's awesome that you agree about that. So how do you feel about the people that were chalking up our courthouse?
I mean, it was interesting, I guess. I just work in the jail, so I don't really know too much about it.
Yeah, but you're a law enforcement. You're in the law enforcement community. You should understand law enforcement, and you should understand the United States of America. You should understand that we all have rights, and that for me to respect your rights is the art of being civil, and for you to respect my rights is also the art of being civil. When you can respect my rights, that means that you're a civil individual. When you can respect my rights. But when you can't respect my rights, people step in and make sure that you can never disrespect somebody's rights again, right?
Okay.
That's usually what happens. When people start disrespecting people's rights, other people step in and make sure those people don't disrespect those other people's rights anymore. That's called a servant to the civil liberties of the people. You know what I mean?
Right. Is that what the protesters were doing?
We all have a job to do. Yeah, protesters have a very useful job in this country. They make sure that grievances are heard, and you have the right to protest, sir. You do, and I would honor that right for you. I would hope that you would honor that right for others.
I do. I agree.
Well, you guys need to start talking to your superiors or your lessers, whichever ones are committing the crimes, and make sure that never happens, so that other people with jobs to do don't have to step up and do their job.
Do you know what the statute says in the penal code about criminal mischief?
Okay. You're talking about statutes, right, sir?
Yes, sir.
And
I believe that's what it is.
yeah,
What's it called?
you know about the Constitution too. Then you have to know about constitutional law and then state statute, right?
Right.
And that no state statute can be repugnant to the Constitution. Otherwise, it's a crime to uphold that statute.
Okay.
And another thing about that is statutes are legal. They're not lawful. Statutes are not the law. They're just considered the law. When you consider something the law, that's not the same as it being a law. You still have to say 9 times out of 10 in the court of law that it's considered a law. You can never openly admit in the court of law that it is a law, because if you say that a statute's a law, then you're lying on the stand in the court of law. Because statutes are codes. They're state policy. And we are up to uphold law. State policy was written for transactions in tender, business transactions. All right? This comes down to people doing their jobs. Okay? People...
Can you get arrested for a statute?
What's that?
Can you get arrested for a statute? By being broken?
Well, usually, to be arrested for a statute to be considered, or a violation of a statute to be considered a crime, which violations of statute can only be considered crimes. They are not crimes in and of themselves. They're only considered crimes. In reality, they're infractions. Okay? So, when a person commits an infraction of a statute, there's different ways that you go about being punished. You can be punished with fines, but arrest is not. Arrest is like the last thing that an officer should do when trying to enforce a statute, especially when the enforcement of that statute can only be considered a crime.
Right.
Okay? When a cop pulls up on a guy that has only infracted something, like maybe they, accidentally broke maybe they're drinking beer in public, okay? Let's say alcohol in public. That's a violation of a statute, state ordinance. Okay?
Okay.
When a cop pulls up on that individual violating a statute, when he, instead of warning the individual that is frowned upon in a public place and therefore is an infraction that can be punishable by a fine, and instead of doing that, the officer criminalizes the person for not even committing a crime, that in turn ensues violence, and it makes the person. It makes the. When you criminalize a person that hasn't committed a crime, that makes the person that hasn't even committed a crime feel as though they're a criminal when they're not even a criminal at all. Okay? So then that person feeling like a criminal when they haven't committed any crime at all, then they feel like, oh, well, these cops are just treating me like a criminal and I haven't even broken the law, so I might as well just be a criminal.
But you just said it was a crime, though, you violate statute.
Yeah, it's a crime. To violate a statute as a person, a member of the public. That's not a crime. But for a law enforcement officer to enforce a statute as a crime, that's a crime. For a law enforcement officer to say that a non-crime is a crime, like if I came up to you and said, hey, you see that tin badge on your chest? It's a crime to have that tin badge on your chest. Not because you hurt anybody. I know that you as a law enforcement officer are trying to help people, and that was what your motto you set out to do when you chose to be a law enforcement officer. But what I'm telling you is to be a law enforcement officer is a crime under my revised statute. And I'm going to have to enforce that crime on you. Even though it's just an infraction, we're going to call that a crime today. And we're going to enforce you as a crime. Would you feel like a criminal just for being a deputy?
Under your statute, yes, I would, because you consider it a crime.
Yes. If I wrote up a statute and it was just an infraction, it was not it wasn't a crime. It was only my organization only considered it a crime, and I enforced that statute on you as you. I even though it wasn't a crime to be a deputy, I took the discretion and wrote it down as a crime, and then I prosecuted you as a criminal, even though it's no crime to be a deputy. And then I never again allowed you to be a deputy again. How would you feel when you had not committed any crimes?
Well, I committed a crime in your eyes by being a deputy.
Oh my
Under your
God.
statute.
Yeah, so you're in agreement with me if I write an ordinance up against you as a law enforcement officer and I enforce that, I prosecute you under my perceived perceptions, then you can either agree to go along with that or you can not agree to go along with it. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I want with you. Who's the bigger criminal, me or you?
Well, I mean, it just depends. I mean,
No, if I enforce something that's not, if I enforce something that you have broke no laws, and I enforce something on you, and I place my hands on you, you hadn't even hurt nobody, and I place my hands on you and I put you in my jail.
I mean, for you, it'd be made up laws, like made up statutes.
Yeah, for you it's made up statutes too, because you can only consider it a crime. You can't say it's a crime. You will never be able to stand in a court of law and say that chalking on a sidewalk is a crime. You'll never be able to do that. You cannot sit. The farthest you could go, and I could bet you your whole career and everything that you stand for in Rockwall, all the gold in Rockwall, I could say that if you stand in the court of law and try to say that chalking is a actual crime, let's see that. Let's see you stand in the court of law and try to say chalking where there's no damages occurred that you can record of.
Well, I think there was 4 that were arrested the other day for that. So you can see that in court when it comes to court date.
Yeah, but they'll only be able to say that it's considered a crime. They won't be able to say it's a crime. It's not a crime. That's an infraction. It's an ordinance, state ordinance. It's not a crime in and of itself. Therefore, you guys are criminals holding them guys in there. That's a false arrest.
Is your false arrest going to hold in court?
Well, that's for the court to, that's what's going to happen in the court,
Why would you hold up in the court?
What's that?
If you think the court's making up laws with whole protection statute, why would you link the courts?
Yeah.
The courts too?
Yeah. For you to realize all this stuff is admittance that you actually realize that there's tyranny going on, and what you're doing is you're saying, oh, well, let's let the courts handle it. So I could make up my court too, and just like like our conversation's been going, I could make up my court of laws too, and I could. All I need to do to make up a court of law is to be within the Constitution and the laws written therein. I don't have to be some kind of agency, I can make up my own security agency and start going and doing things. You know what I mean? I could even make up my own law enforcement agency. Okay?
Right.
I could just make up my own little town, then make up my own little deputy, make up my own little county, and then if I got the backing of the people, enough people, I could start enforcing little arbitrary bullshit on people instead of upholding the law, just like you do. See what I'm saying? Instead of upholding the law, you guys are enforcing arbitrary bullshit on people, which is creating more hostility. I don't know if you'd agree. I don't know if you'll be able to agree with that or not. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what's happening, whether you like to believe it or not.
Right.
Okay? When your guys' organization is going around criminalizing people that haven't committed a crime, you're creating hostility whether you like it or not. So,
Yes, sir.
however long the oppression goes on, you guys can sit back, smile fat and happy and not even care. You guys can act like you guys all got all the courts in your pockets for a while. But after a while, the truth comes out. When oppressed people are pushed far enough, some haven't even seen the likes of what could come of that. You know what I mean? Just take a look at history. Any oppressed people, what do?
They rebel.
Yes, they revolt, and they try to free themselves from the prison that was created. Okay, and so the members of law enforcement have they have it on their side at the end of the day to do what's right and what's just. And when that doesn't happen, in the eyes of the people, they say, "Wait, what's going on here? We got a bunch of people that are acting like they're got some perceived authority, running around charging people for crimes that aren't even crimes. They can only be considered crimes." And at the end of the day, this is the United States of America. No, like let's say Idaho, okay, or let's say Nebraska. Yes, Nebraska and Idaho are states, territories within our nation. But at the end of the day, Idaho does not make up the rules. Idaho still has to follow the rules of the United States of America, which are the laws. Okay? So, any ordinance that the state of Idaho forms against the people must follow the laws of the Constitution, otherwise it's repugnant to that Constitution, and therefore tyrannical. So when somebody voices an opinion by writing on a sidewalk with chalk, which water can wash off chalk, it's even less than paint. Even paint can be washed off. Okay, so therefore it wouldn't be a crime, because if I painted on your house and you tried to say I committed a crime against you, I damaged your property, if I was able to go over to your house and wash that paint off, and there could be no noticeable damages recorded, then there is no evidence of a crime committed. Therefore, it's not a crime. And when you enforce it as a crime, that makes tyranny.
If you were to go do that, let's say you take chalk, okay, and you go to the courthouse.
Yes, sir.
And you want to write chalk on the ground in front of the courthouse, on the courthout steps, right? Let's say that.
Yes, sir.
And you're able to wipe it off, because we all know chalk can come off, right? So if you're able to wash chalk off, but you didn't, is that arrestable then?
No, it's not, because chalk wears off over time. It doesn't even have to be washed off. And the message that is left behind is the whole purpose of the whole everything. There's a message, like what those guys wrote on the. What exactly did they write on our courthouse? What exactly did they write on our courthouse, sir? Do you know any kind of the details?
No kind of marking, no kind of simple line. Just say it's marking, just random stuff, right?
Okay. The thing about it is they were. I think they were saying something critical of cops. I think they were saying something critical of the law enforcement in Rockwall, something to that effect. They were saying something about the Rockwall Sheriff's Department. They were saying something about cops or something. I think that was something to the effect of that. And this is a message that the cops would not like to hear. But that doesn't mean that other members of our society don't want to hear that. So if you got like 5 members of a society that wants to hear something, it doesn't matter if you got 200 people that don't want to hear it. In a civilized society, we respect the rights of those 5 people, even if 200 people don't want to hear it. Okay? That's what makes us civilized. That's the art of being civil. If we cannot be civil, then the only option is to be outlaw. You know what I mean? So That's where law enforcement needs to allow people to remain civil. When law enforcement does not remain civil in itself, then how does the people like when some there was a 15-year-old shot in California in the back. The officer jumped. There was like a 20-mile police chase. The officer jumped out of the car, didn't even say freeze or stop or nothing, just shot at the perpetrator, which was a fleeing suspect. Turned out to be a 15-year-old boy. Next, all of a sudden, what I'm going at with that is that when people saw that on the internet, they don't care what the cop has to say. Oh, you know, I didn't have to say stop because I saw a handgun, so I didn't say freeze. I just bore down and shot on him. Well, the people are saying, you know what? Even in the military, they don't get to just shoot an Afghanistan person just because they want to shoot him and they had a gun. No, they have to wait until they were fired upon, because that's what bravery is about, right? So then the people see the cops not being brave no more. So then they're thinking, well, shit, if the cops don't have to be brave, why the hell am I sitting here being brave? And then they see a cop punching a person in handcuffs. They're like, damn, man, I didn't beat up that guy that stole my wallet the other day because I figured I'd let the cops come and handle him, and now I'm seeing the cop just beat that guy in handcuffs. Geez, I should have just put that guy that stole my wallet in handcuffs and just beat the heck out of him. Look, the cops are doing it. You see what I'm saying? So the cops are the honest. They're supposedly the honest people, and when the cops are seen as doing honest work, the cops are seen as being honest people. So when the cops are seen doing non-honest work, they're seen as non-honest people. And one bad thing, we've been talking about this for years now. I mean, come on, Facebook's been out since everybody in this country's probably had a Facebook since at least about 2012. I mean, there's been civil unrest things being posted on Facebook. Let's take Eric Garner, for instance. He got choked to death by NYPD, and then NYPD retired cops came out with shirts that says, "I can breathe." Well, that probably made about 20,000 people want to try to make sure that cops can't breathe. I mean, in their mind, maybe they haven't gone out and done anything like that before yet. Like, we haven't seen in this country a revolt where, 100,000 people got together and just started going out and making sure cops can't breathe. You know what I mean? We haven't seen that, and we don't want to see that. That would be ugly as hell. Our cops are supposed to be upheld to a high standard. Us as citizens want to look at cops like, oh my gosh, look at those guys, man. We're not gonna throw one year annual parade for these cops. We're gonna throw like 4 annual parades for these cops. We're gonna make sure that they have not $2,000 pensions. We're gonna make sure they have $8,000 pensions. But you see, sir, the reason why we can't do that is because that cop that choked Eric Garner to death made like 20,000 people want to make sure that cops can't breathe. And those 20,000 people would never want any cops to have like 4 annual parades held for them, or let them have $4,000 pension. Those people wouldn't want that. Heck no. So if we got into a situation where obviously the cop choked out Eric Garner because he thought he might be selling loose cigarettes. That was the sad part of it all. After all law enforcement did, at the end of the day, they didn't even have a conviction on Eric Garner for selling loose cigarettes. They just had thought he was doing it, stopped to ask him some questions, but when he didn't want to answer no questions, one of the officers jumped on his back with a stranglehold around the neck, and then they expected him not to die. One of us, dude. I don't know about you, but I'm not, 6'4", 300 pounds overweight. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't die. I probably wouldn't die if I could, like, maybe control my breathing and stop struggling, and and if I allowed, I might not get strangled out as easy as Eric Garner. He had like asthma. He had some overweight problems. You and I might not get strangled out, but that guy did get strangled out. And what it did for the American people was say, oh my God, did you see those cops just strangle that guy to death over some loose cigarettes? I wonder what they're going to do to me. I better put my gun in my back pocket so if a cop comes up to me, I can shoot him in the face before I even do anything else. Because they didn't take no questions from Eric Gardner. There was no questions and answering for Eric Gardner. They just put him in a stranglehold and strangled him to death. So now you got like 20,000 people seeing Eric Gardner get strangled to death. And out of those 20,000 people, how many people do you think put a gun in their back pocket when they left the house that day to make sure no cops came up and strangled them to death? You see what I'm saying?
I would hope none. That's bad.
Yeah, hopefully none. But I'm sure there was probably out of 20,000 people, you could probably say that there was probably maybe, we'll just say 500. Now, if 500 people put a gun in their back pocket and walk out the house today so that they'd never get strangled out by some overzealous cops looking for me because they think I sold some cigarettes, that'd be 500 criminals that NYPD just bred. Okay?
Right.
And that wasn't good for our country at all. And I don't understand where the law enforcement is, I don't understand where law enforcement is even thinking. It seems like they're like, man, the last 30 years of policing, I had my post training. I did everything that was right. I learned from Bill Bratton how to stranglehold somebody. He said it was cool. He said if anybody gives us any lip when we're asking about some loose cigarettes, we just throw them in a stranglehold. You know what I mean? So the cops are acting like, man, we got 30 years of experience. The last 30 years of experience, we've been getting away with strangling everybody. We'll just go ahead and strangle more people. Oh, they're crying right now about police brutality? Don't listen to that police brutality. We'll get away with it forever. We got the thin blue line. Well, that'll go for about maybe, let's say that goes for about 20 more years. Okay? Is it going to be your children in law enforcement that everybody revolts against? Is it going to be you as a retired cop that everybody revolts against? Is it going to be any more of our brave women and men being targeted because some other cops weren't holding the other cops accountable when they should have done holding them accountable instead of saying, hey, look it, the union's going to get this guy off. I know Amber Geiger walked into that guy's apartment and shot him dead in his own apartment, man, but it wasn't my apartment. I'm a cop. You know what I mean? God. Imagine if 20 people just walked into cops' apartments and then shot them and said, oops, I thought that was my apartment. Fuck. The cops would have a heyday. They'd be like, oh, hell no. They're killing us in our own apartments. Something would be done about it then, I bet you. 5 million thousand times over.
You got sentenced to prison, didn't you?
Who, Amber Geiger? She'll probably get sentenced to prison, but they're working on the appeals. We all know about that. You know just as well as I do, especially being a Texas law enforcement officer, that Amber Geiger is getting worked on some sort of immunity right now.
You think so, really?
Yeah, and everybody in America that's not a law enforcement officer believes that full-heartedly.
Is there any previous case I can look up that has anything to do with that? Like something like similar to it, maybe?
Yeah, there's not very much similar to it because we all know that this was one of the precedent cases where, wow, she didn't get just let off. Whoa. I'm talking to you like you're just like my brother, okay, right now, and I'm sitting here trying to relate with you as much as possible, but I'm really trying to get you to relate with me, and we both know that right now. And
that's why I'm talking to you. I want to hear it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, there's people, there's things that have happened in this country in the last probably 5 years that have made it to where people are deciding that they're going to have to employ themselves in a profession to where maybe they join a militia or something, but all that shit's out the window. The American people are going to have to think about way more stuff. They're not going to even try to form a militia. They're not even going to try to freaking put nothing down on paper. You know what I mean? When the revolt starts, it's going to be something that the law enforcement community hasn't ever seen, because right now everybody's wondering what they're going to do, right? Peaceful protest, they try peaceful protest. Oh, well, the cops are going out there and stopping them from peaceful protesting. Okay, so now we can't peaceful protest, so what's next? Okay, violent protest. Okay, so we're going to go try a violent protest. Well, violent protest doesn't get anybody anywhere, you know what I mean? But since the cops are trying to stop you from peaceful protesting, something has to happen to stop the oppression, because people don't just go get enslaved, you know what I mean? They don't just be slaves, you know? Somebody's going to have to really hold them to it. That's like if you took your license plate off your car. The state can only ask you to register your car. They cannot force you to register it. The minute they force you to register your car, that's called extortion. Therefore, the state is committing the crime, not the person who decided not to drive with a registration on their automobile. So the thing about that is that the state writes up a ordinance that says we're going to consider driving without a registration a crime, and we're going to charge it with a misdemeanor, fine up to $1,000, and or 6 months in jail. So then the person's out there like, oh man, I better not drive without a registration. I better comply. I better go down there and pay my $192 to the registration DMV or whatever else it's called, and we're gonna I better conform. Well, you know, then there's the average person that's like, man, you know what? I'm not even as rich as that person paying that $190. I don't even want to pay $190. I think I'm a free person living in a free country. I got my own automobile. The cops didn't buy it for me, so how are they going to try to tell me what to do with my property? And then the person's sitting in a court of law in front of a supposed judge with supposed law enforcement officers around them and some legal aides. And they're sitting there in a court of law, supposed to be a court of law, and here's the judge upholding state statute over law. So what does that do to the court? Makes it unlawful. Court's no longer lawful when they start enforcing statute over law. It's not my decision, it's not my opinion, it's not your opinion, it's the truth. When you start enforcing statute over law on the average person that's not a corporate entity, the truth comes out. And guess what the truth is? People are pissed off. How dare they call me a criminal when I haven't even hurt nobody's personal property? Maybe I should just go out there and hurt somebody's personal property because they're calling me a crime anyways. See how it's breeding criminals? It's breeding hate and discontent. And the cops are just sitting there back like, man, we're just trying to do our jobs, man. The state's telling us to do all this stuff.
How do you fix it?
Well, we fix it by, you know, the men and women in blue saying, hey, look it, you know what? Just because we've been kicking people in the head in handcuffs for the last 30 years doesn't mean that we can continue to do that. There's a camera around every corner. No matter what we do, we get caught for it nowadays. I mean, the only thing, all we do nowadays as law enforcement officers is sit there and violate people's rights and then try to explain how we didn't, and then hope that the people don't revolt against us. That's basically that's basically our law enforcement here in our country. You know, and it's a sad existence. It's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe these guys are actually doing that. Like, that doesn't make anybody feel proud. There's no pride in that. You know? You can't just enforce a statute on somebody and call it a crime when they had not committed a crime. Now, if somebody goes out there and trashes somebody's fence or, you know, punches somebody in the nose, busts it, and it's got blood coming out all over it, well, you know, that's a crime. You know, them bastards better get held accountable. You know what I mean? We don't want people walking around punching people in the nose and then just walking away with it like they didn't, like they can just walk around punching people in the nose and not even have to account for their actions. No, that's what law enforcement's for. We want law enforcement out there. Somebody steals somebody's automobile. Okay, yeah, we want law enforcement out there to do that. That's what law enforcement, when that's an actual crime, there's an actual victim. If somebody stole, like if it was like your wife and children or even you in front of me and somebody came up, maybe grabbed you by the head and slammed you on the ground, or stole your wife's purse or something, without even, that would be an obvious crime. Everybody could see it happening. So there's going to be like civilians out there trying to put a stop to that. You know what I mean? That's only right and that's only just. So we need to get back to what's right and what's just. Rockwall is a good spot to start, because there's some, people talk about Rockwall being bad, right? But in Texas there is so much more worse. In Texas, like San Antonio, okay, that's becoming the laughing stock of our country. San Antonio.
Really?
It's pretty darn bad. They.
I'm from Reno, so I wouldn't know.
You're what?
I'm from Reno, so I wouldn't know.
Huh. Wow, that's crazy. You're from Reno, That's a pretty cool town, I guess. I'm from Pennsylvania, so I wouldn't know. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
I got friends in Texas, though.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go to Spain.
You're a pretty funny character, guy.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'll let you know right now that I know that you're being passive aggressive with me, sir.
I'm hearing you out. I've been listening to you
Oh, I
for
know.
1 minute.
Yes, and that's cool, man. You show signs of being able to eat a Thanksgiving dinner with your family as a real, actual human being. But at the same time, sir, to tell you the truth, I can tell that you're being passive aggressive with me.
I don't mean to be.
In fact, I can also even tell that you are actively trying to stalk me right now.
Stop you from doing what?
Not stop me, stalk me. You're stalking me right now.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't have to sit here and tell you what I mean, because I don't have to sit there and do that. You and I both know what you're doing, but I don't hate you for it. I appreciate you talking to me. I appreciate you hearing, but I hope that you actually hear and you actually, be proactive, I mean, come on. If you're an American national and you care about our country, and you see your fellow cops turning our flag black and white with a blue stripe down the middle of it, acting like they're part of some other buddy's country. If a bunch of blue and red, white, and blue flags descend down on your building, you have nobody else to blame but yourself. Okay? When there's a bunch of red, white, and blue flags descending down on your black and white and blue flag, you have nobody to blame but yourself. That's not the American people's problem. The American people tried to tell you. The American people tried to plead with you, law enforcement officer. Please don't do this to us. Please don't force that hand. Please don't make it to where... What's up?
What about for pride?
Huh?
Well, what's wrong with having our flags that way? What about, like, for example, the pride? Like having people having the rainbow flag? What's wrong with that?
No, that's righteous. I'm glad that you guys have pride within yourselves. I mean, you guys should. There's law enforcement members in these communities that are very awesome people. You know what I mean? And they have pride for their brothers and sisters. Who's gonna deny them that? You know what I mean? It would be like, there's law. Laws are natural. They can't be written. They just happen. So to have pride, that's one of those feelings in your heart, So it could actually be it could be actually written down in the Constitution that having pride is a right, and it falls under the right of the First Amendment right and also the Fourth Amendment right, because your pride is your property. You can have as much pride as you want. Your pride is held within you, so that is therefore your property. Therefore, it's protected by the Fourth Amendment to have pride and everything.
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with the black, white, and blue flag. There's nothing wrong with the thin blue line, but at the same time, when we're talking about natural things, when a country is brought up on pride, okay, like say America is brought up on pride, we're proud of our country. We pledged allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. You know,
Right.
one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. We were brought up on principles to say, you know what, pride is awesome. Pride in our country, pride in our fellow citizens, pride in our rights. Upholding, you know, you want to be an upstanding citizen. To be an upstanding citizen, you remain civil. To remain civil is to respect others' rights. The people that don't respect others' rights are the uncivil, the ones that need to be held accountable. So when it comes down to it, when we were all pledging allegiance to the flag, that flag was red, white, and blue, stars and bars, okay? And it wasn't for me to decide, and it wasn't for you to decide. You learned it, and I learned it. We didn't ask to learn it. We just did learn it, and it created pride in us. Okay? So then you have your average citizen that's not a law enforcement member or a government, like a state entity. Okay? So they're all thinking that they're just Americans, right? And an American sees the red, white, and blue flag as their flag, their home. It's their nation, their home, all their pride. And then they got this law enforcement agency that are supposed to be part of them, but also working for them. And here they are putting on this other flag that's not their country's flag. Wait a minute, are the cops trying to tell us something? Are they trying to say that they're part of something and we're not? We're just part of this red, white, and blue flag, and they're part of this black, white, and blue flag? Maybe they're different from us. Maybe they aren't American. What if those guys that have the thin blue line flag are actually the treasonous trying to bring our country down from within? What if the black, white, and blue flag is to symbolize that they think that they're somebody and they think that we're not somebody? Should we take them out before they take us out?
Right, it wouldn't be right.
What do you mean? What wouldn't be right?
What you said, right?
It wouldn't be right?
Yeah, it wouldn't be right.
Well, no, it would be right of the red, white, and blue flag holders to take out the black, white, and blue flag holders, because the black, white, and blue flag holders are claiming to not be part of our country. You see what I'm saying?
There's no sense of taking them out.
Well, no, because the black, white, and blue flag guys are actively taking Americans out. So the Americans, at a certain point, it's not happening right now, but at a certain point, the Americans will see, wait a second, these guys are acting in the art form of treason, not in the art form of civility. They aren't showing our people any love, and they act like they don't even have to be held accountable. Okay, it's 20 years from 2012. It's time we start taking them out. You see what I'm saying? That might not happen. That might not even ever happen, sir, you know? Nobody in this country wants that to happen. I mean, even the Republicans and Democrats, as they're fighting amongst each other, they don't really want to go out there and do all this civil... Like, the Republicans are like, man, yeah, we'll win in this civil war. We got the guns. And the Republicans aren't even accounting for all the guns the Democrats have. You know what I mean? And then they're thinking, oh man, we're superior. We got all the guns. Look at, we got all this hunting, and we go to the shooting range. Well, they think that that's going to win it for them and everything. And then the Democrats are over there like, oh, look at these Republicans running around with three teeth in their head, acting like they love the Confederacy, acting like, oh, they're going to just shoot everybody because all they think is that liberals are nothing. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, do you see any Democrats going after, do you see like a faction of like 1,000 Democrats going after a faction of 1,000 Republicans? No, we don't see that. And the reason why is because nobody really wants to go shooting anybody. You know?
Right.
Nobody really wants to go doing the Civil War stuff. What's up?
So I appreciate you talking to me and giving me your side. I'm actually going to switch posts now here in about 5 minutes, so I got to close up shop here.
Yeah.
But,
you know, I talk to law enforcement all the time. You know, I do a couple things. I call district attorneys almost every single day, district attorneys all around our country, and I ask them a couple specific questions. I ask them whether they uphold statute as a crime, if they prosecute statute as a crime, and I ask them if they prosecute law as a crime. You know, the breaking of a law as a crime, and the breaking of a statute as a crime. And then I record it, and I compile the videos of every single district attorney in our country admitting to prosecuting statute as a consideration of a crime. Okay? And then I post that video on like YouTube or Facebook, and thousands of hundreds of thousands see this video, and they say they see all these, they see like 100 district attorneys around our country admitting that they prosecute statute as crime. And then the American people go, wait, this is not what we hired them for. They're being tyrannical. We need to put a stop to them now. But then the lines of accountability aren't working out, so it's only a couple more years until people have to start taking accountability in their own hands. People might even start paying other people to go against, you know, they might start paying private security. Law enforcement is in a really tight place right now because the people are actually even thinking about putting it on the votes to where they stop paying law enforcement with tax money and we start paying for our own personal security. And at that point, law enforcement will have to sit there and try to grasp for straws on how are we going to sell our products, how are we going to sell our enforcement, how are we going to sell our protection. When nobody wants your protection because everybody knows what you give for your protection, which is inadequate service. And you know, I'm not saying all law enforcement does this, but most of the law enforcement, I'm talking about most of it, 85% of you law enforcement in our country are being tyrannical right now, and it shows. Okay? So what you need to do with all your buddies in your law enforcement blue line gang over there on the blue line side of America, the one that's not red, white, and blue, where some red, white, and blue people might just come on down to the precinct and take out every blue liner there is. You know what I mean? Not because they want to, but because it's their job. It's their duty as an American to take out tyranny. Before all that happens, you guys should get together and be like, hey, whoa, there's cameras everywhere, guys. We're not getting away with shit anymore. I mean, Rodney King was one thing, but now the last 30 years are a bust. Our training has gone out the shit. Joe over there in training taught us how to beat people's asses, and the cameras are catching us. We can't even beat people's asses no more. You know, it's just showing. This is just all hypothetical, and but what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, yes, it's showing. It's it's showing that it's not getting better. It's getting worse. You know, when the cops step it up from 1,000 people killed a year to like, how far does it have to go before people start making sure that cops can't breathe? You know what I mean? How far does it have to go before the cops say, hey, look we got to start policing ourselves? You know, when Jimmy kicks somebody in the head, or when we put somebody in a restraint chair and tase them while they're down, people don't like that, and they're coming down to our houses where our patrol cars are parked, and they're making sure we can't breathe. We better start thinking about changing our policies and our tactics. That stuff in your guys' honorable community, if it is honorable, it will change within itself. If the community of law enforcement officers are honorable, it won't have to come down to anything, because not my opinion or your opinion will matter. The truth will come out, and the honorable, if they are honorable, they will change within themselves. I wouldn't have to tell you to do that. You wouldn't have to tell them to do that. It would just happen. But when it doesn't happen, then it just is it's proof that the law enforcement community